Welcome to part 6 of Jamey Heath's October 8, 2025 depositions. Hudson. For the record, Exhibit 14 has been designated attorney's eyes only. Counsel for Mr. Heath, who is production assist, has de-designated the document as attorney's eyes only and is designated as confidential for the purposes of the deposition, reserving the right to redesignate it as attorney's eyes only following the deposition if it's going to be filed in court. Exhibit 14, marked for identification. Hudson. Mr. Heath, this is an email chain that Mr. Baldoni talked about yesterday with his prayer group on November 12, 2023, and you were copied on this as well, right? I see that I am, yes. And do you recall receiving this text chain on or about November 12, 2023? I recall this. I don't recall receiving it at that time. There was a lot going on, so, okay. Yeah. And you understand from Mr. Baldoni's testimony yesterday that this document, this text chain, was in reference to the 17-point list that you all had received on November 9th, right? Yes, and also just know I left many times during the deposition, and I think I left during this time. So I don't know if I know all that was said during that. Okay, but you can seeing it now that this text chain is in reference to the 17-point list, right? I see that. Okay, and you see on the page Bates stamped, there are 2 Bates stamps, but the lower Bates stamp is 51220. Do you see that? I see that. That Mr. Baldoni says, as read, pretty tough to digest, as of course we all know that this document insinuates that I am unsafe, sexually harassing, etc., etc., etc. There's even silly things inferring Jamey was inappropriate, which is silly. Do you see that? I do. And did you understand at the time that Mr. Baldoni at least viewed the 17-point list as an insinuation that he was unsafe, sexually harassing, and inferring that you were inappropriate? I do see that he writes this here. This is on the 12th, right? Yes. This is a few days after we had received the document? Yes. I don't remember this exactly coming in because this is his writing and not mine. But I do know that Justin at this point was, I don't know what the proper term is, but he was thinking of all scenarios and filling in blanks and trying to think of a lot of stuff. And I think this is just an expression of some of his thoughts. Right. And his thoughts at the time were that the document insinuated that he was unsafe, sexually harassing, and that you engaged in inappropriate conduct, right? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I need you to repeat what you said there because I didn't see that exactly. Hudson, which part do you need me to repeat, Mr. Heath? Were you just, Shapiro, objection. Hudson, you want me to say my question again? Yes, please. Okay. I'll tell you what, I withdraw it. I heard it. Now I'm understanding. I see what he wrote here. Yes, and you understand that it was his view that the 17-point list document insinuated that he is unsafe, sexually harassing, and inferred that you were inappropriate. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I see that this paragraph says that. Hudson, that's not what I'm asking you, because I know you can read, Mr. Heath. So I'm asking you, Shapiro, objection. Hudson, a different question. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I understand. Hudson, okay, my question is, you understood when you saw this that Mr. Baldoni, he viewed the 17-point list as insinuating that he was unsafe, sexually harassing, and inferring that you engaged in inappropriate behavior. Shapiro, objection. Hudson, is that right? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I'm just having a hard time saying that you're asking me to determine what Justin meant, and I don't know what he was thinking at this time. Hudson, I'm not asking you to say what he's thinking. I'm asking you, if you read the words, yes, you understand that this is that he was saying how he viewed this document. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I see that this suggests that he was considering this to be something that could be possible. Hudson, I see. Okay. And do you know how your in-house counsel, I think you said her name was Imene, how she responded to Ms. Strasberg's email? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't see that. Hudson, do you recall her saying that the protections were not only reasonable, but essential? I don't recall the language. You can show it to me. Okay. Did you think that the 17 protections that were in the document were reasonable? I think taking them as they are written, yes, I think they are ultimately reasonable. Okay, at some point, did Miss Lively come back to the production? She did. And did filming resume? It did. What date did it resume? Do you recall? January 5th, 2024, I believe. Prior to returning to filming, was there a meeting at Miss Lively's apartment? There was. And you were at that meeting? I was. And if you go back to the protections document, okay, you will see, can I pull this one up? I think it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Okay, I see it. Number 17 was, as read, an all-hands in-person meeting before production resumes, which will include the director, all producers, the Sony representative, the newly engaged third-party producer, Miss BL, and BL's designated representative to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of all the above that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of BL, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. Do you see that? I do. Okay, and there was a meeting that included all of those participants in her apartment on January 4th, the day before production began, right? Yes. Okay, and have you read Miss Lively's Second Amended Complaint? I have. Hudson, okay, I'm going to hand you that document, the Second Amended Complaint, which we have marked as Exhibit 15. Exhibit 15, marked for identification. Jamey, do you want me to read the whole thing? Hudson, I definitely don't want you to read the whole thing. I'm going to point you to something very specific in this document. If you turn to page 7, okay? You will see paragraphs 19 and 20 refer to the January 4th meeting and the participants. Do you see that? I do. And the participants that are listed in paragraph 19, is that an accurate list of who was present? Chris Sargent was also present for the beginning portion of it. Okay, other than that, is it an accurate list? Yes. And then in paragraph 20, the complaint says that during the meeting, that Miss Lively read the list below in its entirety, and then below is a list of 30 points. Do you see that? I see the 30-point list that's included in this document. Okay, and you see in the complaint where it says Miss Lively says she read the list below in its entirety, right? I see that. Okay, and did you attend the entire meeting? I did. Okay, and you said you've read the Second Amended Complaint before, right? I have, but I don't recall every single detail of it. There's been many legal motions moving on around, so I did at that time, yes. Well, I would like you to take a moment and look at this 30-point list and tell me if you recall Miss Lively discussing each of these things during the January 4th meeting. You mean, did she, I just want to be clear, discuss any of the things inferred in these things? Because she did not read this list. Your position is she did not read from a list? She did read a few things from her phone. She did not read this list. So I just want to know what you want me to do, because are you saying Miss Lively read a different list? I'm saying Miss Lively read a few things from her phone, maybe 9 or 10 things that were not phrased in this way at all. When you say they were not phrased in this way, what do you mean by that? Well, nothing ever said no more. And the way that it's written was not, she read more, it wasn't firsthand, but it was not phrased like this. So each one of these 30 points addresses a topic. Are there any topics that are addressed in these 30 points that Miss Lively did not cover during the meeting? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, yeah. Hudson, which ones? Okay, well, we can take our time going through this. I don't know how you want to do this, but like starting with number 1, no more showing nude videos or images of women. Then it says including producers' wives, which insinuates that there were other ones to be Ellen, her, or her employees. So yeah, we talked about that video again where she had brought it up. So you talked about the video, but Shapiro, can you let him finish? Jamey, so we talked about the video. We didn't talk about the details of it. We just brought up again that the video was shown. Again, I apologized to her, recognizing that she was surprised by it, but this wasn't written, but the topic was. So no more mention of Baldoni or Heath's previous pornography addiction. I don't have a pornography addiction, so certainly she wouldn't have never read that, and I don't know what that refers to, so no, that was not discussed. Did she talk about Mr. Baldoni's referencing pornography addiction during this meeting? I believe she mentioned something about it. Okay, did she talk about wanting to neither her nor her employees to hear personal experiences of other people's sex lives, including as it relates to spouses or others? What number are you reading, please? 3. I think she said something about that. Did she talk about number 4? Did she say that she wanted no discussion about with her or her employees of personal times the physical consent was not giving in sexual acts either, as either the abuser or the abused? I do not recall that. You don't recall that? I do not. Okay, did she recount a story in which Mr. Baldoni talked about times that he had engaged in actions with women without consent? No. She didn't talk about that? Okay, did she talk about the description? Anyone describing their own genitalia to her and asking that not happen? No. She didn't talk about let me rephrase it. No, not that I remember in any sense. She didn't talk about Mr. Baldoni telling her that he was circumcised. No. She didn't talk about that in this meeting. No. Did she talk about how she didn't want to have any more jokes or disparaging comments about HR complaints the Wayfarers already received or about missing the HR meeting? No. She didn't talk about it? You're certain? I am. She never said anything about HR complaints. Maybe she may have said something to Justin about the commenting referring to her wardrobe as sexy. That may have been there, but these rest, no. Okay, what do you remember her talking about at this meeting? I can continue to go through it. Well, I think I would rather have your memory. What do you recall her talking about? I think I need to read through it. I'm not asking you about that anymore. Now I'm just asking just for your memory. Shapiro, you can ask whatever questions you want. I just want to be clear on the record that you did ask earlier for him to go through all 30. Hudson, yes. Shapiro, and tell you, and he's never got to finish that. Hudson, I understand. Shapiro, so I just want that. So I just want the record. Hudson, Shapiro, to be clear on that. Hudson, understand. I'm withdrawing the question now. And I just want to ask you your memory of the January 4th meeting. What topics did Miss Lively discuss in the January 4th meeting to your memory? I remember her talking about her father. I remember talking about something about Justin lingering on her lip. I do not believe we talked about this trailer thing that has come up. I need to think about it for longer because there's been so much information and really that. So let me read this so that some of it might refresh my memory. She mentioned, I remember her saying something about that Justin shouldn't cry anymore to her or with her or something of that nature. There may have been a couple more, but those are the ones I remember. A lot of these things were not addressed, nor did they make any sense to be addressed, being that many of them were already in the 17-point list. For instance, why would she read number 30 to us as we were in an in-person meeting? There's no sense in that. We had already agreed to no monitors being viewed and that the intimacy coordinator be on set at all times. Why would she read that when we already agreed to it? So is it your memory? She didn't raise things that you had already agreed to? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, no, not necessarily. My memory is that she did not read this list. Hudson, all right. And you have now testified all the things that you could recall her talking about during that meeting. Yeah, I could. There could be maybe another one that I'm just not remembering. But as I said, she read a handful of these, maybe 9, maybe 10 of them, but not this. And I can say that had I read anything at that moment that said no more, it would have been a very different conversation. And why is that? Because no more explicitly says that it's happened before. Well, you knew that some things had happened before. You had been informed about them, right? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I'm just saying that it says no more in different ways. No more description of their own genitalia does not imply, does not suggest, does not leave room for anything. It specifically says something of that nature. And had this list been read at that time, that would have been a different conversation. Hudson, how long did the meeting last? 5 hours, 6 hours, somewhere around there. And you've given me a full scope of your memory about what was discussed in that 5 or 6 hours. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, no, a lot of it was Ryan belittling Justin. Hudson, for 5 or 6 hours? A lot of it was. And when you say belittling, what do you mean by that? When she first started reading a couple of her things and Justin was hearing this, taking this in and trying to make sense of it, he was frozen by hearing this stuff. And instead of, well, let me not say instead of, and his reaction was that he was being a coward. That what you do when a woman says this to you and points out these things, you just stand up and you just apologize and apologize. And Justin was like, but I didn't do this. And then he raised his voice and used some language and insinuated that he was not a good guy. That Mr. Baldoni was not a good guy? Yeah. And he did it very aggressively. He did it to me as well, more at him. It may have been the hardest thing I have ever witnessed someone talking to another person with such belittlement. So after that meeting, did you have an understanding that there were things that were happening in connection with filming this movie that Miss Lively was uncomfortable with? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I understood that she had shared some things that did not make sense, and I believe were fabricated. Hudson, you believe were fabricated? Not all of them. Either distorted, or fabricated. Now, did you think it would be a good idea to conduct an investigation at that point? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, her letter started with, as we went back to it after this meeting, with in lieu of an HR report, we would sign these things, and if any of these things were referencing that, there was nothing to investigate. Hudson, in lieu of a formal HR process, I think it said. Yes. So you decided that since Miss Lively said in November, in lieu of an HR process, there was no need for an investigation? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, we did not determine that was necessary. Hudson, you did not determine? You? So you determined it was not necessary? Is that right? We did not determine it was necessary. We never came to the point to think that it was necessary because in it, while she was expressing it, it was very confusing because it was almost like he was a child. Not that she felt threatened or that it just felt like he was a child and it was talking that. It wasn't. So our perspective from that point was we left and had some conversations with Ange and Justin was a little frozen because of the aggressive nature of it. She could not wait to get back to work tomorrow, and we moved forward. So did you consider that other people might be uncomfortable on set? No, we hadn't heard anything else about anybody being uncomfortable. There was a lot of insinuations about, I think she brought up saging, talking to her dead father. There was a lot of stuff that was mixed in here that was just, she didn't like Justin. She didn't like me. She didn't like that he cried. She mentioned that there was a lot in there. So there was a lot going on. Did you actually have a conversation and make a decision not to do an investigation? No. Shapiro, objection. Hudson, did the topic of an investigation come up at any time prior to receiving Miss Lively's CRD complaint? No, not that I recall. At some point, did you have a dinner with Colleen Hoover in connection with the trailer launch? We did. And when was that? You're going to have to refresh my memory. I will do that. I think it was, 2 or 3 months before. 2 months before release, I think. 3 months maybe, but I don't know. Shapiro, Jonathan, how much more time? Videographer, we've been on the record for 5 hours and 14 minutes. Shapiro, thank you. Jamey, Miss Hudson, I won't need this anymore, will I? Hudson, no thank you. Do you recall what day the trailer launch event took place? Was that May 6th? I don't recall. Okay, you don't recall. Well, you recall the trailer was released in May, correct? I will take your word for it if you know it. There's a lot of dates in my head, so I don't recall. Okay, all right. Well, you recall going to dinner with, I do, Miss Hoover, the night of the trailer launch event, right? Uh-huh. Okay, was that May 6th? Yes. Okay, I will trust that you're correct. And who else was at that dinner? Myself, Justin, Colleen, and I believe her friend's name is Taryn. Did you hear Miss Hoover's testimony about that dinner? I believe I did. Okay, but I don't recall it. What is your recollection about that dinner? You mean the whole dinner? Well, let me ask you this. So it was what was the purpose of the dinner? Because you all invited Miss Hoover to the dinner, correct? I believe Justin was responding to her request to go out to have dinner. At least that's what I recall it. But then Justin informed me that they were going to go out to dinner and would I like to join? Uh-huh. And did you tell Miss Hoover that you were concerned that Miss Lively was going to say that you had sexually harassed her? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I never said that. Absolutely not. Hudson, did you tell Miss Hoover that she had given you a list of 17 protections that she required before she would return to work? We may have referenced that. Okay, and why did you tell Miss Hoover that? We had, Justin specifically had many years now, 5 years or 4 years or something of working and Justin specifically had many years, 5 years or 4 years or something of working and having a friendship with her. I had developed one over the last couple of years. We were going out to dinner and she was curious about what's been so hard. She could tell that it's been a troubled experience due to all of the strikes and the script and some of what we experienced with our AD and a lot of Blake's demands. And I don't recall what the impetus was, but it's just like, this is what we've been dealing with. You told Miss Hoover what, in your view, you had been dealing with Miss Lively, correct? As it pertains to the production of the film, yes. Okay, because Miss Hoover didn't know anything about any issue with production up until that point, correct? That's not entirely true. Shapiro, objection. Hudson, well, that's what she testified to. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, okay. Hudson, but you think she knew something more? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, she did. Hudson, okay, and what is it? And what's your basis for that? Because we would talk to her throughout it, and she didn't know the details, but she knew that we were struggling with making our days. She knew that at some point we had to get rid of our AD, that Blake had control of the script and the challenges of that. She knew that. I don't recall if she knew what she knew of just how Justin was kind of tiptoeing around her constantly. Around who? Blake. You're saying that Miss Hoover knew that? No, I said I don't recall if she knew, but she knew that he was treading, always being mindful of how to navigate. She had such strong opinions about stuff all the time, and him being the director and how to navigate that. Were you involved in conversation with Miss Hoover and Mr. Baldoni where he talked about that with Miss Hoover? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, no, I remember I'd had a couple conversations. How's it going? She came to visit set. It was just like, this is what we're doing. This is really hard. It wasn't anything other than she was a friend. We had known her. She had no relationship with Blake. It wasn't like anything other than just like, this is what we are experiencing. Hudson, Mr. Heath, I want to be very clear here. Are you saying that prior to this May 6th dinner, you participated in a conversation in which you told Miss Hoover that there were struggles with Miss Lively specifically? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, yeah, she knew a little bit. Hudson, I didn't ask you what she knew. I want to know what you told her prior to May 6, 2024. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, simply that it was a struggle to manage Blake with the script, that we weren't making our days all the time, that she had an opinion about a little bit of that. Hudson, you told Miss Lively prior to this dinner on May 6th. Shapiro, objection. Hudson, you told Miss Hoover this prior to the dinner on May 6, 2024. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't remember exactly to what detail, but there was some conversation about it. Hudson, when? I don't remember when. We had a talk. I had talked to her throughout. Well, you had talked to Miss Hoover throughout the production? No, yes, throughout, but maybe once every month, she'd come to set. We'd ask her for questions. You talked to Miss Hoover once a month? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, probably. Hudson, probably? Do you have any phone records reflecting that you talked to Miss Hoover once a month? Well, we have your phone records, so we can look, right? Please. Okay. And text messages, yeah. And text messages with her once a month about Miss Lively? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, or emails? Yes, no, not about Miss Lively. That would just be in contact with Miss Hoover. Hudson, once a month? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, it could be once every 5 weeks. I'm just telling you that throughout the production, we would talk throughout the production. Hudson, uh-huh. And how many times throughout the production did you tell Miss Hoover prior to May 6th that you were having difficulties with Miss Lively? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, it wasn't specifically about Miss Lively. It was just the process of making the movie and what some of the difficulties are. Shapiro, okay, well, I'm specifically asking about Miss Lively because Miss Hoover testified that the first time she heard, yeah, that you had any issue with Miss Lively, you, meaning Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, was May 6th. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to be very, very clear about whether you said anything before that. Are you clear in your memory that you said something about Miss Lively to Miss Hoover prior to May 6th? Yes. Okay, but you don't know when and you don't know what you said. Is that right? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I would not remember when because the event was not some big event. It just was when you catch up. How's it going? And then you share some of the stuff that you're experiencing. Hudson, and can you say with any specificity the stuff that you were experiencing with Miss Lively that you told Miss Hoover about prior to May 6th? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I do not know specifically. I just know that there was a general update, and that would have been included to some degree. Hudson, what is that? That it was hard making our days. That Blake was, Justin, we were navigating how to manage what was challenging about working with Blake. Her having the script and us not always getting it, and the changes, and then her and Justin trying to figure out the balance creatively. I don't know what portion of all that, but that's what we were dealing with. And some of that I know that I would have expressed. You know that you would have expressed? Yes. Okay, you spoke on them at the May 6th dinner with Miss Hoover about the return to work protections. Did you tell Miss Hoover during this dinner that Miss Lively had raised issues about you sharing the birth video with her? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I have a memory that we spoke about that, but I don't recall what was spoken about. Hudson, did you tell Miss Hoover that Miss Lively had raised an issue about you coming into her trailer while she was undressed? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't recall ever saying that she raised an issue. I had said that we knew that the whole production included normal, not problems, like normal situations like the strikes, everything I mentioned, and also this is what we were experiencing with Blake. And in recalling it, we had thought about, remember that she thought that when I showed her that video, she thought it was porn? It was not. And I had shared that with her, some version of that. Hudson, okay, and I think my question to you now is about the trailer. Did you share anything about that with Miss Hoover? Oh, I don't recall specifically about that. Okay, do you? And I don't think so, but I don't recall that. Okay, did you talk to Miss Hoover about the fact that Miss Lively had and Miss Slate had raised that Mr. Baldoni had called them sexy? I think at least one of the events, maybe Justin had shared, but I don't recall what it was. Okay, did you or Mr. Baldoni tell Miss Hoover that you were concerned that Miss Lively might make her concerns public? No. Did you tell Miss Hoover that Miss Lively was working on Sony's cut of the film? I imagine so. Did you tell Miss Hoover that you thought it was going to become public that Miss Lively was working on a cut of the film? I don't recall. I mean, that would have been something that we were navigating through because we were facing a lot. But did you or Mr. Baldoni tell Miss Hoover at this dinner that you're not saying she's a narcissist, but she's exhibiting narcissistic behavior? I don't recall that comment. You recall Miss Hoover saying she heard that comment at the dinner? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't recall that comment being said. Hudson, I understand, but I'm asking you if you recall Miss Hoover testifying to that. Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I can't recall exactly what her words were, but I don't recall that. Hudson, what was you and Mr. Baldoni's purpose of talking to Miss Hoover about Miss Lively at this dinner? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't think there was an agenda. In fact, there wasn't an agenda. This was someone that we had worked with. We knew. Oftentimes you have conversations about what your workday is like, what your work week is like, what you've been experiencing, and there was a bit of sharing about that. Hudson, and did you hear Miss Hoover's view of how she felt about that dinner after the fact? Shapiro, objection. Hudson, and her specifically what? She testified specifically what? She testified how she felt about this dinner in her deposition that you listened to, correct? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't recall specifically. Hudson, you don't recall what she said about that? I would need you to refresh me. Okay, you don't recall that she said she was essentially disturbed by the fact that you all were being so critical of a woman who she didn't even know at this time? Shapiro, objection. Jamey, I don't recall her saying that. Hudson, you don't recall her saying that in her testimony? I don't. Okay, go ahead. I'm not saying she didn't. I don't recall that. Okay. I do recall her saying something about that she felt that Justin and I were trying to get her on our side. I remember something of that nature, which didn't make sense to me because they didn't know each other. Why would there be a need to bring someone on your side when there is no relationship on another side? That was not our intention. So I didn't understand her testimony in that regard. That is a very good question. Hudson, why don't we take a quick break? Jamey, okay. Videographer, we are going off the record. The time is 5:15 p.m. Recess. The videographer, we're back on the record. The time is 5:42 p.m. That was a really great question, Jamey. Why would she feel like she needs to pick a side when she doesn't know the other person? Anyways, see you in part 7.